It is a pleasure to be here with you all, and I am honored to be in such company and to be learning from all of you. It's such a diverse and wise group, and I'm excited to talk about the future of Faith Tree Resources because I think it's going to be quite a blessing to hear what your feedback is about some of the things we're going to put forth. But before I actually jump into the specifics of our ministry's future, I want to share a personal story with you. So will you all go with me on a little journey real quick? Okay, so let me start by asking you a question. Have you ever been faced by something that was totally unacceptable in your life? Like any unacceptable. Maybe you stepped on the scale and you were like, whoa, that is unacceptable. Or maybe you had a relationship or you were in a job and it was just totally unacceptable. And you said at some point, you know what, something's got to change. Right? I think that for most of us, we could probably identify with some moment in our lives when we looked up and came up against that what you would call unacceptable. For me, the day was November 17th, 2005. My husband Walid and I had taken our 1.5-year-old son, Dimitri, to Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. And we were waiting to get the results of months and months of testing. And we sat in a room that was so small, I could feel the air being sucked out of the room. It was completely claustrophobic. And after 1,000 years, a group of doctors poured out into the waiting area and they invited us into a room. And we could tell from their faces, it was not going to be good. So the chief pediatric neurologist on the case took the lead, and he started stumbling through those words no two parents ever want to hear. You're right, something's wrong. And then he went on to deliver the most crazy laundry list of bad news. It seems your son, Dimitri, is presenting with multiple issues. He has significant toxic encephalopathy. He's got low muscle tone. He's got immunological dysfunction, gut dysbiosis, gastroenteritis, and he's got metabolic dysfunction. And the list, y'all, went on and on and on. And honestly, we didn't even understand half of what he was talking about. But the bottom line was, they told us our 1.5-year-old son, Dimitri, would have some serious and ongoing medical issues. Then they went on to tell us he'd never go to a typical school. They told us he would never be an independent functioning adult, and they went so far as to say that at some point in his life, he would need to be considering a group facility because this mother could not handle her baby. His issues would far surpass our capabilities to care for him. And that, my friends, was the unacceptable. Not that he might have to go into a group facility, but that he would never know, connect, or realize the unseen. That's what they left us with. They said, he won't understand anything non-concrete. He won't understand anything that he can't touch. If that's the case, then how's he going to know God? Is that possible? And the worst part was not that they were flippant about it, not that they said that these were the scary threats, and they were scary, don't get me wrong, all the medical jargon totally freaked us out. But the threat, the unacceptable for us, was that our son, 1.5-year-old, might not understand or interact with the unseen. That was our unacceptable. So, let me go ahead and ruin the story for you. I'll spoil it. Dimitri has gone on to defy every single prediction they made for him. We are almost 12 years later, and God bless him, he is a funny and amazing, hardworking and godly young man who, thank you, Lord, is bright and healthy. And actually, oddly enough, he's pretty popular, which is irritating because he's a preteen now and the phone calls, but we can talk about that later. And if I had not shared this story with you, which just so you know, I did so with his permission, you probably would not know or detect that he had a history like he's had. And in fact, if you'll let me be self-indulgent for a minute, I'm going to show you a picture of my boy. This is 2 weeks ago when my children made me really consent to the fact that he's officially taller than I am. So that is Dimitri. He is doing very well. And best of all is that God, in his great love and mercy, has allowed Demo, as we call him, to pursue intimate relationship with him. Demo is a faithful participant in the life of the church. He is committed to learning about God and serving him. How? How did that happen? Well, I'll tell you, first and foremost, our loving and good God is boundless in his mercies. He opened so many doors that could not have been opened for my son. But it also happened, I am convinced, because there was a whole team of people teaching Dmitri about our holy Orthodox faith and our traditions in a language that he could understand. That principle, teaching in the language of our people, has been a bedrock of my son's success, and ultimately, it is the foundational bedrock of Faith Tree Resources. Okay, so here's how the story continues, okay? And this is really how we got started. It goes back to my son Dmitri, and now go with me forward from diagnosis day, and let's go forward he's about 8 years old at this time, so we're talking about 5 years ago. Okay, and Dimitri's doing great at this point, and we are standing in church, and we were visiting a church out of state, and he was next to me in the pew, and the priest was giving the sermon. And he was talking about the precipice of sin is overcome by Christ's love for us, which is most fully expressed in the Orthodox faith. And he went on to talk about things like cataphatic theology and apophatic theology and hermeneutics defined by sacred tradition and ecclesiology with specific views on Catholicity and a therapeutic soteriology. And so it was something like that. I may be misquoting, but Dmitri leaned over at me at this point and he said, Mom, what did he say? Like, what's all that stuff mean? And so I, being a mother who'd been in the church for, at that point, almost 40 years, I did what any good mother would do. And I leaned right back over and I said, Dmitri, honey, babe, I'm not sure, so we'll look that up when we get home. And that's the moment that Faith Tree was born. Right there, okay? That single exchange was the beginnings of this effort, which seeks to deliver the truth of our holy faith in the language of our people. Because see, what happened at that point, and this is really important for you to understand, at that point in the service, my son tuned out. And sadly, that which is life-giving, our church, the faith, that which we should pursue with fervor, was irrelevant to him. He shut down. But you know what? So did I. And it was clear, if my son and I didn't understand even the basics, we were never going to be able to apply them. And isn't the application of the faith important? I mean, it's a vital part of our relationship with God. It's the proof that we're obeying him. And it was in that moment, standing there in that church, that I realized Dmitri was going to need some direct instruction in his language so that he might fully engage in the life of the church, and he was going to need it in a different way. And actually, it was at that moment that I realized I, who was in ministry, was going to need direct instruction if I was going to fully engage in the life of the church in a different way. And then the realization came that maybe lots of folks could use a different way. Maybe lots of us would benefit from really being delivered the faith in a language we understood. And so I think it's fair to say that at that moment, Faith Tree was born. Okay, so once we became really clear that our mission, our calling really, was to share the fullness of the truth in the language of our people, Faith Tree Resources took off and running. So in our next, I'm just going to take 25 minutes to a half an hour. In that next time together, I just want to do 3 things, okay? So here's our plan. Number 1 is I want to describe to you the current state of our ministry. And I know you all have the colorful pages in your resource manual that the Orthodox Vision Foundation gave you, but we are new. In fact, we're not even 3 years, we're about 26 months old. And so I want you to know not only what our vision and our mission are, but I want you to understand our methods, because I think it will inform our conversation at the end, okay? The second thing I want to do is I want to talk about our future. Where is it that we want to go? What does winning look like for Faith Tree Resources in the next 3 to 5 years? And then third, we've been tasked, and I am going to submit and share with you all the unacceptable things that are going on and facing our ministry right now. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to openly share where we're struggling, where we feel a little vulnerable, where we aren't sure if we're maximizing all of our different potentials, so that you'll be empowered to be honest and guide us so that we can really go forth and achieve this ministry's goals. Because not achieving them is unacceptable. Sound good? All right, let's do it. Here we go. Fast forward with me. From that exchange that happened in that church several years ago to where several months later passed, and a formal effort got presented to our very brave priest at St. Michael's Church in Van Nuys. It's an Antiochian parish with probably 200 families, and a priest that is willing to do whatever it takes and whatever it works for his people to know and come to love Christ and his church. So with the blessing of this brave priest, Father Timothy Backlig, we quickly found out our hypothesis was correct. People were hungry to understand the practical application of Holy Scriptures and the teachings of the Fathers and all of the different traditions of our faith. So the first thing we did was we went and studied, and I went straight to our Protestant brothers and sisters. Spent a week with Dave Ramsey in Nashville, went to Houston with some folks there who had worked with a number of different mega churches and giga churches. Deacon Michael Hyatt, we got a lot of information from him, and we said, why are people listening? We want to know. And so they showed us their model, and we followed it. We began hosting local events in our parish. Then we began creating online events, and pretty soon that turned our audience international. So in July of 2015, we had a choice to make. We were just a small team of 2 volunteers, and the demand was getting out of hand. So we went to the parish council, and here's what we said. Guide us, tell us, do we stay focused locally, or do we continue to respond to this international demand? Because we don't think that we can physically do both. And they encouraged us to reach as many people as we could with the good news of Jesus Christ. So, since that time, some 26 months later, our audience has grown by the thousands, and it continues to grow. Okay, so that's the story of how we were created. Let's just talk real quick, and I'll give you an overview of our current operation and where we are. And I'm going to talk quickly, but about everything from product to people to how we're financially organized. Okay, y'all with me? Let's talk about our products. And actually, over here on the floor, will my lovely Barker's Beauty, Cindy, these are just, you can look at them later, but these are some of our products that you can see, and I will show you a couple of clips. Thank you. So in the past 26 months, we have spent that time creating multiple products for purchase. And we've also created dozens of free resources and trainings to thousands of people across the world. We've led over a dozen live events or workshops. We've done trainings all over the country. And our products, as you saw, are provided in multiple formats. So each one of them is designed to help our audience bring the Orthodox faith to life. So we have things like small group studies. We have things like webinars, online teachings. We do live events, we do coaching calls, we do books and printed materials, and my favorite part is we have ongoing support mechanisms in place to help our priests, to help our people, and to help our pan-Orthodox parishes across mostly the North American continent to take advantage of the fullness of our truth. Okay, so currently, we have an effort, and you can see it later, but it's called the Lionheart Sessions, and it is a male group study for men of all ages. And we just this week launched a small group study for teens, which I mentioned last night, which is called the Relationship Project. We have a big effort called Removing Barriers, which addresses the many barriers that are facing people with disability in our churches. Our Orthodox churches need support in removing barriers that hinder people from being full participants in the life of our church. And I want to share a little win with you. I haven't even told my Uncle Charles this yet. We were contacted last week by Azusa Pacific University in California, who asked us if they could partner with us to help take our efforts with disability to the next level and really get it out to churches across Christendom and see that work. So that was exciting. We have products for families. One he mentioned is called The Art of Fighting, and it tackles conflict resolution in marriage. So that's a little example of some of our products. You can see kind of the hard copies of stuff up here. Now let me tell you a bit about our team. So we're almost entirely volunteers. We are a small and scrappy band of homegrown folks who are on fire for this work. Most of us have children, and we want our children to know and love Jesus Christ and his church, and we don't want them to borrow their faith from us. I actually have never seen a group of people more connected to a cause or more passionate to see a vision come to life. And while we have hired a virtual assistant for about 10 hours a week, and we contract with our filmmakers, and we have other consultants or creatives on board, for the most part, the most extraordinary and dedicated group of people from within our parish and now from across the Orthodox complexion of our country, across jurisdictions, in many different states, we have volunteers working diligently on our resources, and often, and it's important to hear this part, often at great personal sacrifice. Okay, so we've got our product, you've got our people. Let me talk quickly about our finances. We are not a standalone nonprofit. We fall under the 501c3 of St. Michael Antiochian Orthodox Church in Van Nuys, California. We report monthly to our parish council, and our bank account, although we operate it, is a St. Michael bank account. They own it. Okay, speaking of our bank account, here's how we've structured our operations financially. We pay for products as we go. We conceive the idea, or we're pitched the idea. We fundraise to create a product. We create it, and then we sell it. And then we invest all of the proceeds back into the next product. And I think here it's, while we're on this subject, important to say that our first product, the Lionheart Sessions, was entirely and completely funded by the Orthodox Vision Foundation. And it may not sound like a big deal, but that was a very brave investment on a very new ministry and organization at a time where we were either going to go or not go. And so that one decision to invest in us has allowed us to reach countless numbers of people across the world. And so we thank you. We thank you. In general, once we've raised every dollar we need, either by donations or grants, every dollar raised goes back into the particular project it was raised for. And the sale of that project, again, is invested into the next one. Okay, let's talk about theological accountability. This is one that I do want to flesh out just a bit. It's a question we get asked a lot. Our stuff doesn't look typical in a lot of ways, so let me just flesh out, because I think it's important for you to understand. We are relentless about falling under our Orthodox theological authority. It's what we're called to do. I was giggling this morning because Deacon Michael stole my quotes. He must have seen my script. But in 2 Thessalonians, when St. Paul talks about standing firm and holding fast to the traditions that you were taught, or in Corinthians, we hear, I praise you for remembering me in everything and for holding to the traditions just as I have passed them on to you. We take that very seriously. Our crew does not move without the blessing of His Eminence Metropolitan Joseph. And we take extraordinary measures to make sure everything we do is uniquely Orthodox, vetted by multiple theologians and clergy, so that it is taught from a completely Orthodox ethos and understanding. And so we have great controls in place to make sure that happens, okay? So what we're looking for is that our clergy feel very confident in utilizing or recommending our content because they know and can take for granted that we vetted and revetted it. So let me tell you how that looks. The first one you saw, the Relationship Project. We just launched that. So here's how that went down, okay? We hit a bunch of hot topic issues with that one. Marriage, gender, identity, intimacy, physical desire and attraction, friendship and loneliness, and then in light of all of those things, then we talk about dating. And we wanted to make sure that we presented the content in a way that was very high on truth, but also very high on love. So here was our process. Our team drafted an initial script. And we actually took that script to a team of almost a dozen clergy, theologians, even bishops were involved on multiple Orthodox jurisdictions. And with the use of modern technology, we met with them via video teleconference week after week after week online. And we'd say, okay, shoot holes in it. Where are we off? What are we missing? Is anything really strong? What would you do differently? And they would give us feedback, and we would take that and spend the week incorporating all of their different suggestions. And then we'd go back to them again the next week, and they'd shoot holes on it, and we'd go back and they'd shoot holes on it, and we did it week after week after week until every single member of the team was willing not only to sign off that the content was approved, but that they were willing to tack their name on it. After that body met and did the theological vetting, then we took it to a group of Orthodox counselors, therapists, social workers, licensed marriage and family therapists, and we did the same thing again. Week after week after week, we said, are we treading on any kind of scary territory? Are we talking about issues that are going to leave our youth workers vulnerable? What does this look like as it plays out in conversation? And after they were willing to sign off on it and tack their name on it, then we took it to our youth workers. And our youth workers did the same process. And we asked them, are we missing anything? Are the kids going to think we're super boring or antiquated in our approach? Are we out of touch? How will it actually play out in your classrooms? We gathered their feedback, and once they were willing to sign off on it and tack their name on it, then we took it to our teens and we beta tested it around the country. This process has been an extraordinary way of functioning for us for several reasons. One, it gives us great protection, right? Not only for us as a team to make sure that we're teaching authentically, but also for our audience. And it also gives us incredible insight as to what our audience is thinking, feeling, wanting. And it ensures our clergy, through this process, that the theology is solid, even if it doesn't look typical to what we've done a lot in the past. Okay, I'm getting there. In addition to vetting the products with every possible group of experts we can get our hands on, here's another really exciting piece that I want you to know about. We pray for the people who use our products in an organized way. And this is one of all of our team members' favorite parts. Elder Porfirio says, prayer for others brings grace to the person who prays and also for the person for whom he is praying. When you have great love, this love moves you to great prayer. So our team takes this very seriously, and we have coordinated a team from the parish. We call them the prayer warriors, and they actually pray for our audience and those using our content in actual real time. So for example, if you host the Lionheart sessions, which is the men's group study, we will find out what date you are having those sessions. And then we have a group from our parish, mostly made up of the older women in the church, who will gather and pray for you in real time. They'll pray for you, for the men in your class, for your leader, for your priest. So if your class is Tuesdays at 7, there's a group of ladies from St. Michael Church who are praying for you on Tuesdays at 7. And it's one of our favorite ways to partner with our parishes across the country and our sister churches. Okay, we're getting there. Support. So in addition to prayer, Faith Tree goes to great length to provide support to the people in the parishes that are using our materials. So we aren't really interested in handing you a book or a curriculum or a small group study and just saying, hey, thanks for your purchase, and patting you on the back and saying good luck. No, we actually want to walk alongside you to make sure that our materials are being implemented for transformation. We want to see our people grow closer to their local parish, to their priest, and to Christ and his church through these materials. Okay, and so to do that, we have provided multiple touch points with our organization, whether it be coaching calls, or maybe we help you implement a new program technically and give you technical support, or maybe we even have new methods of delivery, so we will walk you through how they could look. And now we've created, and they haven't started yet, but we've actually brought someone on board to help us with Mastermind Groups. And the way that will look is if you have 50 kids in a youth program, and there's another church in Idaho that has 50 kids in a youth program, we will all collaborate in a facilitated conversation on a monthly basis so that we can get best practices from each other. And in that way, we really intend to squash the isolation of ministry. And to do that, we've hired seminary graduates who are on a part-time basis, but they either have a master's in divinity or ministry or both. Okay, so now we've done it. We've talked about how Faith Tree was created. We said where we came from and where we stand today. And I just want to add quickly before we get into the nitty-gritty, this is what we're hoping for the future. We have a list of resources we want to get to our parishes. We have polled our clergy. We are constantly in a state of inventory, and we know there are a lot of needs, and we want to meet them one by one. More importantly, if you haven't gathered it, we want to become a significant and leading resource for our churches and Orthodox Christians across the world so that they can practically apply the church's teachings. in their day-to-day life, and they can actually live what they believe. We do that by supporting pastors, engaging people, and energizing parishes. So what slows us down? Vision's clear. The passion is there. Well, there's some unacceptables, okay? There are some really important pain points that our organization, as so many nonprofits, and we've heard it from our friends at Focus and IOCC, but we're dealing with some pain points that I'm hopeful to get your insight on, okay? It's been said that pain is a thorough teacher. Indeed, and we are learning a lot because we've been in pain. And be sure, and Proto-Deacon Peter, you have talked about the importance of an intentional plan, and I promise you, our plan has been crafted to every single move we make and have made in the last 26 months. What I will tell you is that, as boxer Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. So we have been punched in the face, and sometimes it feels like there's a constant punch in the face. So today, we have some really big decisions to make, because what we know is the way that we currently exist is not sustainable, okay? So here they are. There's 4 that need attention. Number 1, the care of our team. Number 2, finding the right legal structure. Number 3, creating the right financial structure. And number 4, creating the right board. So number 1, the care of our team. Y'all, our team is exhausted. There are 2 of us on the core team, an already overworked priest in the middle of a building project, and a mother of 4, including one with special needs. What that looks like daily is we meet 3:30 to 6:30 every morning. We work for a couple hours if our kids are at school, and then we work late into the hours of the evening. Our families are getting taxed, our finances are getting taxed, and we're tired. There are 2 more team members who we have brought on a current project, who we have now asked to stay on and who are excited to stay on, and they have made enormous time commitments to this work. But somehow they keep forgetting to invoice the ministry because they're concerned that the cash flow isn't stable enough yet. Okay, that's unacceptable for us. But they believe in this work so much that they keep showing up. Again, that's not sustainable, and if it is sustainable, it's not right. So finding, hiring, and paying a few key individuals will be critical to the long-term welfare of this ministry. And the question I will pose to you all at the end is, how do we find the right people? And how do we financially sustain them? Number 2, the legal structure. Currently, I said we fall under the nonprofit status of St. Michael Church, and in some ways, that makes things super easy for us, really easy. We believe all theology is local. We constantly preach to go back to your priest and go back to your parish. We're not about having, church online or outside of the community. We just want to see people go back to the local community. So it would make sense that we would also start from the local community. But in other ways, it isn't necessarily easier. As we grow, there are many people within our parish, the legal types, the people who are looking for the long term, who think we might be actually putting our parish at risk. And I've had that concern. Are they absorbing any, liability vulnerabilities? We've also heard that we could be limiting ourselves, and we debate, do we become our own for-profit impact organization? Do we stay as a 501c3 or our own 501c3 or the church's 501c3, or do we operate independently? These questions are constantly debating, and I put them before you because everybody has a very different opinion, and they're all good. So I'd love to find out what that looks like, okay? And then the question that follows that is the money, okay? We want to get Faith Tree on firm financial footing. We would love not to be fundraising all the time. And because we are not financially supported by the church or any archdiocese, we have relied upon the support of individual donors and grants for the last 2 years. Okay? We want to have a steady source of operating capital that's not connected to a project. And to be very frankly, we want to start paying our volunteers. And by that, I don't mean the priest or myself. We are blessed because neither one of us are in a position where that is going to determine if we can volunteer or not, but that's not sustainable for the long term. We have to build in those positions for the future. Currently, as I mentioned, we want to do that by the sale of product. So I'm going to ask you, can we? Can we do it by the sale of product only to the Orthodox? Do we have to hit mainstream Christendom? We've debated all of those issues, and I'm anxious to see what this group says. Okay, and then the board. this is our last one. Depending on the legal structure of our ministry, at some point, we are going to have to consider having a board of trustees or directors or some formal body that allows us to function in our new legal structure if that's what we choose. And I don't know what that looks like. Even today at lunch, Deacon Michael and my Uncle Charles and I had a conversation, and everybody's got different opinions, and they're all good ones. So eventually we're going to have to pick a plan and stick to it. If we do start a board and bring people on that board, who are those people? What are the skill sets we're looking for? Which ones are most critical? How big is our board? So those questions I'd love to get your opinion on. And then I will just tell you, and I'll close with this. You know, as you can see, there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of decisions to make. The good news is this work is fun. Our people are energized. We may be tired, but we are on fire for what is possible and what we are seeing happen in our churches. And so we've also been very blessed by communities across the world who have embraced this work. Our hierarchs and our clergy have embraced this work, and it's been a blessing indeed. And with your help, we'll hopefully take Faith Tree to levels we did not imagine. So I want to just close with this brief reminder of why it's so important, and I want you to remember this. Last week, I was walking through Whole Foods Market, trying to get some last-minute items for dinner together, and I got a phone call. Now, it was a number I don't recognize, and typically I will never answer those, but for some reason, I don't know why I picked up. And on the other end of the phone was some woman. I don't know who she was. I wouldn't recognize her if I saw her. I don't even remember her name. But she told me she was the mother of a child who had just gone through one of our programs on the East Coast. And she said, "Is this Michelle?" I said, "Yes, who is this?" And she told me her name, and then she went on to tell me that 2 years ago, her child had essentially left the church. Her child was in high school. But she refused to have anything to do with it any longer. And for 2 years, she stayed away. And the mother went on to say that her child somehow ended up with one of her friends at one of the retreats that we held. And she said when her daughter came home from that weekend, she sobbed to her parents. And she said, "I want to go back to church." And when her mother said, "Why?" she said, "Mom, I just didn't get it before. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know why it was important, but I'm starting to understand. It didn't mean anything to me before because I didn't understand." And that day, I stood in the meat department of Whole Foods Market and I cried. And I thanked God for work that matters. And I was reminded that just like my Dimitri, and just like me, and just like that little girl, and so many others of us around the globe, we have to be delivered the truth in a language we understand. Those of us in ministry have to deliver the truth in a language that our people understand. Because y'all, anything less is totally unacceptable. Thank you.